If we meet and you forget me, you have lost nothing. But if you meet Jesus Christ and forget him, you have lost everything. That's a quote that I heard years ago that has always stuck with me. And so it's what I want to consider as we wind up this year in studying church history and the experiences that we've watched throughout the Doctrine and Covenants in our Divine Destiny study of Come Follow Me. Jesus Christ, 25 years ago, it's gone by pretty fast because I remember this document like it came out yesterday, but the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12 put out a document simply called The Living Christ. And it was their testimony, these 15 men who are called as special witnesses of the Lord Jesus Christ, to minister to you and I and to all those upon the earth. Now, my friends, I believe it's absolutely important that we understand who these men are and what their calling is. Now, when I say who these men are, the names will come and go and they will be interchanged by good men who have lived great lives. But their calling as a witness of the Lord Jesus Christ, I want us to be clear on. And the reason I want to be clear on that, my friends, is because it is the only thing upon which you and I can count. Now, I'm not talking about the men, I'm talking about their calling. And that calling is what? You have heard me use this quote, so I will use it again by Joseph Smith, because I don't know of a clearer quote to help you and I understand what these men are called to do. He said, the fundamental principle of our religion are the testimonies of the apostles and prophets concerning Jesus Christ, that he lived, that he died, that he rose again the third day and ascended into heaven. And all other things which pertain to our religion are only appendages to it. My friends, the testimonies of the apostles and prophets are the only thing upon which you and I can count as they relate to who Jesus Christ is and what he did for you and I. Joseph one time said to the brethren, as they were calling the first members of the Quorum of the 12, he said, brethren, your calling is not full and complete until the Lord Jesus Christ himself lays his hands upon your head, just as he did with his original 12 in the days of the New Testament. My friends, think of what that means. There are many testimonies. I have a strong witness. You probably have a strong witness. Every single person who has ever come to this world can have a strong witness of the Lord Jesus Christ. But these 15 men that are upon the earth at any one given time, the First Presidency and the 12, have been given a special witness. Anytime you have an opportunity to study what they have shared, I invite you to do so. They are words upon which you can count. Now, I'm not talking about individually, because there are times, we've talked about this past year, one particular member, the first president of the Quorum of the 12, Thomas B. Marsh, was led astray. And it may happen throughout time. But Joseph also said this: the majority of the Quorum of the 12 will never lead you astray, because the Lord will not allow it. So you and I can base our lives upon what the majority of the Quorum of the 12 has to say, because it will always, and I repeat that, it will always be words from the Lord Jesus Christ. I invite you to study these callings, study these men and what they have had to say. I wish we had hours upon hours to share with you things, the things that I have read and studied about different men that have held those callings. But I have come to this: they all have an experience. I remember listening to Boyd K. Packer one time, and he said, I feel wholly inadequate when I look at who I am next to these other brethren. He says, they are my superiors in every way. Now, keep in mind, Boyd K. Packer was a fairly intelligent individual. He, along with a committee of people, are the ones that in 1980 brought all of our scriptures together in what we call the standard works. They were different than they prior to 1980. They redid all the headings and numerous things. Very capable individual. But he said, every one of these brethren is my superior in every way. And he says, I've often reflected on why am I numbered among them. And he says, I have come to one single thing. I have that witness. The witness, the one Joseph Smith said, when he said, brethren, your calling is not full and complete until the Lord Jesus Christ himself lays his hands upon your head and confirms your ordination. Why do I make such a big deal of that? My friends, you and I can have. Joseph Smith also made the comment and observation that you are my greatest desire should be for ourselves to see the face of the Lord Jesus Christ while in mortality. In other words, my friends, it's possible. But where do you and I go to have such an experience? Well, it starts by studying this Lord's words. It starts by understanding what the traits of Christ are. Because I have also found in the numerous writings that I have read of these different brethren, every single time that their witness has been experienced that I have read about, they have always been in the middle of service when that experience came. Particularly their service to other people, service in the Lord's kingdom in their assignments. Oh my goodness, there's really just too many to mention, so I won't tell stories, but sometime I will. Sometime if you want to know, but the best way to know, my friends, is to go start looking those stories up and reading them for yourselves. But why I say start there is because these are men that have had those experiences. I promise you, the number of women that have those experiences are equal. My friends, your knowledge of, your testimony of the Lord Jesus Christ will be, and your relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ will be the single most important and powerful thing you will ever do in your life, because it is the very thing that has brought about your life here in mortality, the purpose for your life, and what it is about. And so with that, my friends, I just want to read a couple of statements. You've studied this. You can study it on your own. And I implore you, I implore me, please study these words and study them regularly and often, and listen to the Spirit speak to your mind and to your heart as you read and understand these words in the midst of a world of chaos. Please understand, that is by divine design. Even the chaos is by divine design. There must be chaos in order for you and I to choose righteousness correctly. Now, we don't have to choose righteousness. We should. We'll be given the opportunity to choose whatever we want. But if you're looking for the lighthouse in the midst of the chaos, it is, has always been, and will always be the life and the ministry of the Lord Jesus Christ. Here are but a few words in this document, The Living Christ, that was brought forth on January 1st of 2000. Gordon B. Hinckley was the president of the church. You can go look at the signatures of all of the men that were there at the time. But in that document, here are just a few of the things that were stated. All things. This is the testimony of these men who have seen and walked and talked with Christ. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made. Now that's a quote that comes from the New Testament in John, but it is their experience. They continue. He went about speaking of the Lord Jesus Christ and what his life was about. And in as simple a terms as anything, my friends, these are the words that I would leave with you and me. If you want to study and learn Christ, the traits of Christ, and become like Christ, here is the simplest way that you and I can do it. Again, these are words that come out of the New Testament in Acts chapter 10, verse 38, that simply said this: He, speaking of the Lord Jesus Christ, went about doing good. If you and I will make that our simple mantra in life, the Lord eventually called that the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And what is that do unto them? Do good. He went about doing good. Can I invite you and I today to be a person who goes about doing good? His was a message, and this is the message that he shared. His was a message of peace and goodwill. Now, these are words, my friends, that are absolutely in stark contrast to where the world is at today. Again, by divine design. Peace, that's not the world today. Goodwill, that is not the world today, but I will say this, there's more of it than you think. In fact, I absolutely believe this with all of my heart. At the core of every single human being is good. And why do I feel that way? Because I know who their creator is. And I know what he created them to be, you to be, and me to be. I know what our capabilities are, will be, if we will turn our lives to the pursuit of understanding this life of Jesus Christ and what he meant when he said, go about doing good and using peace and goodwill. They continue. He was a vicarious great gift in behalf of all those who would ever live on the earth. This is what these prophets and apostles said concerning Jesus Christ. His life, which is central to all human history, neither began in Bethlehem nor concluded on Calvary. Think that through, my friends. The short life that he lived here neither began in Bethlehem nor concluded on Calvary. And can I share with you, your life is the same. Insert wherever you were born and wherever your life may end. Your life did not begin there, and it will not end here or wherever that is that you are. He and his father appeared to the boy prophet Joseph Smith, ushering in the long-promised dispensation, the fullness of times. And then they quote some words by the prophet Joseph Smith that we have studied some this year. But I want to leave these words with you again, because here is a man that has stood as strong a witness of the Lord Jesus Christ as any human being who has ever lived. Again, this is not about Joseph. It is what I have said on many occasions as to why I honor and revere and absolutely love everything about Joseph Smith, because most of my understanding and my testimony and my relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ has come to me by studying the experiences of Joseph Smith and what he had to say about the Lord Jesus Christ. So here are but a few of his words that these 15 men in January 1st of 2000 shared, that has also been their experience. Of the living Christ, the prophet Joseph wrote, his eyes were as the flames of fire. The hair of his head was as white as pure snow. His countenance shone above the brightness of the sun, and his voice was as the sound of rushing great waters, even the voice of Jehovah saying, I am the first and the last. I am he who liveth. I am he who was slain. I am your advocate with the Father. My friends, there are no more powerful words than that. When you come to know that Jesus isn't just the Christ, he is your Christ and my Christ, then you will say I know you will, because as you read these words, these will come to mean a great deal to you as they have to me, and apparently as they have to these brethren at the time. And now Joseph says, in the 76th section of the Doctrine and Covenants, he says, and now after the many testimonies which has been given, this is the testimony last of all which we give of him. For we saw him even on the right hand of God, and we heard his voice bearing record that he is the only begotten of the Father, that by him and through him and of him the worlds are and were created, and the inhabitants thereof are begotten sons and daughters of God. Your divine destiny, my friends, and everything about your and my life will be amplified and, simply put, made possible because of the one single life of the living Christ. I invite you and I on every day of our life, let the majority of your thoughts and mind be consumed with the life, the ministry, the atoning sacrifice of the Lord Jesus Christ. And as that becomes what you and I focus on, his traits will become our traits as we pursue the divine destiny which is ours. Have a great day.